I'm George Kesterman, the CEO of the Frontex organisation. I've spent a lot of years as a management consultant helping organisations improve their governance, compliance and performance. A recurrent theme of my work is that documentation is a point of pain in management. Most organisations have awful documentation. What I'm presenting here is a system and a methodology that gives you good documentation, that delivers better management, better governance and more reliable compliance. Before we go further, a point of definition. Documentation does not mean documents. Documentation means knowledge. The corporate knowledge that defines how your organisation is intended to function and how it meets its governance and compliance objectives. Our product, Frontex, is not a document management system. It has nothing to do with dashboards or analytics or day-to-day operational data. Our proposition is this. 1. Documentation is not optional. For any number of management and statutory reasons, you have to define in writing how your organisation is intended to function. 2. Poor documentation is risky. If people don't use your documentation, or they misunderstand it, or what it says is ambiguous or wrong, sooner or later bad things will happen, with consequences for your organisation and, increasingly, with personal liability for directors and officers. 3. Poor documentation is expensive. It takes longer to use and to update, and all the tasks that rely on the documentation, such as induction, training, change management, compliance audit, and so on, are harder, slower, and more error-prone. 4. The core of the problem is documents. Trying to manage corporate knowledge as a collection of documents creates problems that can never be solved. In a live, busy organisation, there's no practical way to maintain integrity across the full set of documents. Inevitably, you get gaps, duplications, and inconsistencies. And your collection of documents goes on growing as new documents get added, but old ones don't get removed. So the problem gets worse. 5. Frontex solves this problem. Frontex is a platform and a methodology you use to manage your documentation as knowledge, not as documents, but as items of information. Single pages automatically structured, integrated, controlled, and communicated. Frontex gives you a single source of truth about how your organisation is intended to function. Easy to use, easy to maintain, easy to audit. You get faster and better management, continual improvement, line-of-sight governance, and reliable compliance. And better yet, Frontex is less work than traditional documentation. As a product, Frontex is 3 things: a web platform, a knowledge management methodology, and a design and content service. The web platform is your single source of truth about how you want your organisation to function. For your end users, this is the one-stop shop to get the information they need to answer their questions. Guaranteed the latest version. For your managers, Frontex is a simple, in-place editor to record their management thinking, to write policies, engineer processes, design controls to meet your compliance requirements. Your managers can focus on management. Frontex does the mechanical work of formatting and layout and cross-referencing. Behind the scenes, Frontex manages the structure of your content to ensure that it's integrated, consistent, and presented as your users need it. It handles the administrative tasks of metadata, approval records, usage records, permissions for who can see what content, sending change notifications, and so on. Management time is way too valuable to be spent on the chores of documentation. Frontex does these for you. As a methodology, Frontex is how you ensure that your documentation continues to meet the needs of its stakeholders, to help your organisation meet its operational and governance objectives in the face of continuous change and improvement. As a service, the Frontex team is available to help with the design and creation of your documentation content. You'll need us when you first implement Frontex to bring your documentation up to standard, and you might choose to call on us in future if you have a major documentation need, such as following a merger, acquisition, or organisational redesign. In each case, our involvement can be us doing it all, or guiding your people as they do it, or just providing occasional review and mentoring. So, why do it? The short answer is that Frontex delivers better outcomes with less effort. Better performance. For end users, Frontex is a single source of truth. It's easier to find information and they have more confidence in the information they find, so they use it more. And the more that people use your documentation, the more the organisation will function as intended. Better performance, fewer mistakes, lower risk. Management agility. When it comes to documenting and communicating management changes, Frontex is fast. With traditional documentation, the edit-approve issue cycle tends to be measured in weeks. With Frontex, it's minutes. Better management of your governance and compliance risks. You can be confident that the organisation is aware of its obligations and is doing everything it should to meet them. You have a concrete system you can point to prove it. And your corporate knowledge becomes an appreciating asset. Knowledge in Frontex has value that increases with every update, as opposed to knowledge in a document that starts depreciating from the moment the document is issued. These better outcomes alone make Frontex worthwhile. The icing on the cake is that Frontex is also less effort for everyone involved. If you put a value on the effort that's currently going into your documentation, Frontex is a major saving right from the start. You probably don't measure these costs, but a simple proxy is the total quantity of documentation you have, the total number of pages in all your policy and procedure documents. There's a rough correlation between the page count and the amount of work your people have to put in on documentation-based tasks, like induction, training, and so on. In an organisation that's been around for a while, the number of pages is usually well into the hundreds, if not the thousands. Converting to Frontex typically reduces the total count by over 65%. That's an indicator of the saving that Frontex gives you. If you like how this sounds, here's how we might proceed. Step 1 is a proof of concept pilot exercise to show you that it works, to give you confidence in us, to give you confidence in what this is going to deliver. You give us access to some of your existing documentation. We'll set up a demonstration system to present to you and your management team. There's no cost or commitment up to this point. If you like the demonstration system and give us the go-ahead, step 2 is design and planning. We talk to your people, learn about your organisation, and prepare a plan for developing the initial Frontex content. We inventory your existing documentation. We need to learn about the compliance requirements that you must meet, the jurisdictions you operate in, and so on. And most importantly, we need to understand the people who will be using the system. How do they work? What do they need? What are your needs and expectations? Step 3 is to build the initial content. This will be through some combination of content from existing sources, management interviews, process walkthroughs, and team workshops. This step also serves to provide guidance and mentoring to your own people on how to create documentation that actually works. Step 4 is rollout and handover. Introducing Frontex is a culture change, best presented not as documentation in itself, but in the context of the underlying management objectives: better performance, better compliance, better safety, continuous improvement, compliance culture, and strategic vision. Nobody actually wants documentation. What they want is a reliable management system, so they can be confident that their work is safe, legal, and effective. When you roll out Frontex, that's what you're delivering. To take this forward, or to see a live demonstration, please contact me now through the medium of your choice, or use the calendar link to set a meeting time. I look forward to talking with you. Thank you for your interest.